Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hey, how you doing? My name is Ash, and I am doing a get ready with me as I talk about the books I read in the month of July. So I 100% stole this idea from Betty Jean. I'll have her channel linked down below. I don't know where she got it from, but obviously I got it from her, so I'm just gonna link her. Yeah, she's kind of inspired me to make this sort of video and like talk about books, because I absolutely love reading. I do. I love just losing myself in a story. And I read 10 books this month. So I read 5 books on my Kindle, and I read 5 physical books that I own. And I bought about 20 books in July, and that is just too much. So obviously I have all my makeup on, and you're just gonna see me put it on. But I gotta say, I know I suck at talking. I know. I cannot have a coherent thought come out of my mouth when it comes to explaining stories. So I do apologize if I end up butchering a lot about these stories. I suck at remembering names, places, things. I know the premise of the story, but I can't tell you the names. So going forward, I'm going to try to keep notes of important things. I am not the type of person that annotates books. I know a lot of people do that. I'll see it on like Book Talk where people have like, you know, sticky notes in their pages and like writing all over. I do not personally like writing in my books. There's just something about it. I also saw this video where somebody was making their own book cover, but like the video starts with you just ripping the cover off of a book, and it's like, oh, my heart, my soul. I don't understand that, but I get it. I get it. I'm gonna shut up and let's just get into talking about books and makeup. Alright, so I'm gonna get started with my base makeup, and I'm not doing anything very crazy with my eyes because I do have to work tonight and I don't feel like doing too much. So, but before we start, I did put on a moisturizer already. I was gifted this new thing from Flawless. It's the Forget the Filler Skin Plumping Line Smoothing Perfecting Cream. So I'm giving that a try, and then I have brows on. This is the new Kosas Brow Pop Nano in medium brown. I got those sent to me through Skeepers. I think I like the cream. I don't think I like the brow pencil. Also, please ignore my nails. I have been going through it this past week, and this is actually my first time filming outside of my Halloween decor. I haven't filmed all week besides that. Anyways, I'm going to start with sunscreen, and we'll talk about my first book in a moment. This is the e.l.f. Suntouchable Invisible Sunscreen. I got this one because I really did like the other, what do you call it? The other Suntouchable one, but it made my skin too dark, and this one doesn't. I've been really liking it. So the first book I read in July was Hannah Whitton's For the Wolf. I started this one right at the beginning of the month, and I, right off the bat, loved it enough to immediately go and buy the second book, which I haven't read yet, but let me figure out my face and then we'll move on. So the tagline for this book is "The first daughter is for the throne and the second daughter is for the wolf." Honestly, when I got this, I thought maybe werewolves, maybe Little Red Riding Hood. Wrong. There is no wolves. I'm gonna go in with my Merit like complexion stick in Bone. I'm just gonna use that today because I have a ton of redness going on. What is going on? So this book follows Red, short for Redarius, I think that's how you pronounce it. She is the second born daughter, technically. She has a twin, Neve, N-E-V-E. So Red is the daughter of the queen of, oh, what is this place called? Valida. So Red's mother is the queen of Valida, and next to Valida is this place called the Wilderwood, where it says nobody can enter, and once you enter, nobody can leave. So there's this idea that there is a beast or something in this wood that takes the second daughters as sacrifices to help bring back the 5 kings. Red is almost, I think, 20 in the book, and I think it's when you turn 20, if you get the mark on your arm, then you are the chosen one for basically a sacrifice. I have no idea why my face is so red. Red basically accepts her fate. She accepted it a long time ago. Her mother didn't really treat her very well, kind of ignored her in a way. And it's sort of explained towards the end like why she did. And basically Red ends up going into the Wilderwood, and she survives the trees. The trees are a big part of this. Very interesting, very interesting. So she makes it through the trees, and she comes across basically a hidden house castle. I won't call it a castle. It's like a derelict house where she meets Eamon, who is basically the monster in the story. I'll be honest, I love Eamon, but there is a magical element to all this, and it's very interesting, the world that Hannah Witton builds. And I honestly thought I had the book figured out early on, and I had some parts right, but when you get to the end and it sets up for the second book, which takes place in her sister's perspective, Neve. I'm just saying Neve. I'm pretty sure that's not how you say her name, but the setup for the second book, I just think I'm gonna like the second book a little more. But yeah, very good. I think I gave this one 4 stars, and I didn't give it 5 just because I figured out a little bit of the plot as it went on. But I'm talking way too much, so I'm gonna move on to the rest of my makeup and then the next book. So I'm gonna go in with my Urban Decay Stay Naked Quickie Concealer. I'm gonna share this next book, but then the next one I did not finish, part of the series, and that would be Teardrop by Lauren Kate. I've read the Fallen series by this author. Was it my favorite? No, it wasn't my favorite, but this one I gave a 2. And then the sequel, Waterfall, I did not read it at all because I didn't like how this one was set up. And then I had this one already. I bought these a while ago on Thrift Books, and I had these just on the side to read for a while. And honestly, for my DNF one, I looked up the synopsis of it. I read one review about it, and then I decided to read part of the last chapter. I absolutely hate how this ends. Decided not to even bother with the rest of it. So needless to say, I'm getting rid of these books. For the book that I read, let's talk about that. So Teardrop follows Eureka, who is a 17-year-old now. She's 17. She lives with her dad and stepmom and 2 step-siblings. Her mom passed away in a tragic car accident. It was a freak accident of water on a bridge. And the premise of the story is basically Eureka is dealing with that grief, but also dealing with the fact that she doesn't cry. It is a supernatural element in this, and man, I suck at explaining books. So a few months after her mom dies, she actually meets this guy called Ander, and she's very enamored with him, thinks that he's really good looking, but he seemed weird. And basically, I'm just gonna say why I don't like this story, and I'm just gonna powder while I talk about this with my Anastasia powder. So if you're interested in the story and you don't want any spoilers, you can skip ahead. But basically, at this point, Ander is a Atlantean, I think, seed bearer, I think is the name that they call themselves. And it's just kind of creepy because it's never really said how old Ander is, but it's assumed that he is as old as Atlantis, because he said that he was watching Eureka since she was a baby and was just basically stalking her and her mom, and he basically like fell in love with her, you know, through all this watching. It's him and his family, the Seed Bearers. They are trying to prevent Atlantis from rising. That's what they say. And apparently Eureka's tears are strong enough to make that happen. And I should say, I didn't like the way that it was going, and it's just one of the books I'm just like, oh, why did I even read this? It took me not forever to get through it, but it took me a while to get the want to pick this up to read it. It's not a hard read, it's just something that I was not a fan of. Needless to say, I don't get rid of a ton of books. I'm getting rid of these 2 because but that was Teardrop by Lauren Kate. Now let's move on to powder. This is the Kiko Milano powder. I'm just gonna wipe away most of the Anastasia powder. And I got this little book, Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Khaw. I gave this one like a 1.7 technically. You can say I rated Teardrop higher because I gave that one 2 stars, and I gave this one like a 1.7 just because I wanted a little more scare out of it. So the premise of that story is it's 5 friends, some of them don't get along. They end up going to this supposedly haunted house in, I think they're in Japan. So of the 5 friends, 2 of them are dating, they're actually engaged, and the chick wanted to get married in a haunted house. Why anybody wants to do that, I do not understand. But basically, problems arise. The main character, okay, yes, it was Japan. The main character's name is Kat. So the story of the house is there was a woman who was supposed to be married to a man, and something happened with the man and he never showed up, and in her distress, she buried herself alive under the house. And since then, there are just the bodies of broken-hearted brides under the house. So it makes sense. Yeah, have a wedding there, right? My takeaway was I am interested in more of Cassandra Claw's stories, but I just wanted like 100 pages more, just a little bit more depth. But it was a quick and easy read. I suck at explaining everything, but I'll have everything that I talk about linked down below if you want to just look it up. It's basically just a small haunted house story. The next 3 books I'm going to talk about all together because I've read them on my Kindle. I am a big fan of Kindle. I have Kindle Unlimited, and I read kind of cringy stories, not gonna lie. But I'm going with my Jaclyn Hill bronzer. This is in Birthday Suit, and I have a list on my phone. So the books are all by the same author, and it's book 5, 6, and 7 because I read the first 4. And it goes Nanny for the Dark Elf King, the Dark Elf Secret Son, and the Dark Elf Secret Twin. So it's basically elves, dark elves, in the land called Prothika, something like that. And I gave all these books, I think, a 3. I'm not separating them because the premise is pretty much all the same, except for the first one. So basically, these stories go, humans live in this world with elves. Humans, especially human women, are kind of afraid of dark elves because humans aren't treated that well. And sometimes, you know, humans are taken as slaves, women are taken as sex slaves, yada yada yada, you get the gist. But it always starts with this woman doesn't want to be with a dark elf, and then they find this one dark elf, and he's like so hot. But it's like, I don't know if I want to be with him, but he's so hot. I don't know if I want to be with them. That type of story. And then they're like, I don't know if he actually likes me. And the dark elf is always like, yeah, this human woman's for me. Apparently they all don't know how to communicate because it's always the same, basically. Except for the nanny one. The nanny one is the king needs a nanny for his his niece and nephew because his brother passed away and he was taking sole responsibility of the kids. And he knew nothing about taking care of kids, so he found a nanny, which happened to be a woman, human woman, who he just found on the docks, who works on the docks, who he only agreed with her because I think she was pretty and she got the nephew to calm down. Anyway, so he offers her a job and they go to his land, and she nannies for this guy, this elf, and there's chemistry, and then they, you know, spicy time, and then the drama has to happen, you know, miscommunication. On this point it was no communication, and then drama, and then a happy ending. I think this one, surprisingly, wasn't a pregnancy one. The other 2 ones are. So the other 2 ones are basically the same idea. Human woman doesn't want to be involved with a dark elf, finds a dark elf. They do the spicy. I'm going with blush now. This is Warm Sun by Anzai. And then they're like, you know what? This isn't working. I don't know if I can be with them. And they run away and they're pregnant. And then literally in almost every book, it's like 2 or 3 years pass. And then there's like, oh, maybe I should let him know that he has a kid. But yes, I read those. I have the 8th book on my to-read list, but I don't think I'm gonna finish the series. I think there's like 10 plus books in the series. It is what it is. And then I finally read The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I have been a fan of Holly Black since high school, basically, when I read the Tith series, Tith, Valiant, and Ironside. I still have those books. I must say, I gave this one like a 3.5 to 4, because it really set up for the second book. And I will admit that I kind of ruined the ending of this because I read the synopsis for the second book. So if you're interested in the series, don't read the synopsis for the second and third book because it will give away some things. So this story follows Jude and her sisters, who are basically swept into fairyland because this fairy Madoc came and basically killed her parents. Because Madoc was in a relationship with Jude's mom at some point and she left while pregnant. So he has a half-fae child, which is Violet, and he came to basically claim and take her to fairyland, but he ends up killing both the mom and dad and taking them off to fairyland. At the time she was like 7 or 8, so this is 10 years later where the story takes place, and she is just trying to find her place in the fairy kingdom because humans aren't very liked there. The Fae court is very vicious, and Madoc is off the top of my head I can't remember, he's like a general, and he basically helps train mainly Jude. The other two, I can't even remember the second sister's name. She's a bitch. Taryn. She has a problem with the youngest prince, Cardan. He basically bullies her and basically suppresses that he has feelings for her. Jude fights back. She's trying to make a mark in the Fae world as a human that can last, basically. This ends on a cliff note, basically, that leads up to the second book, but it's pretty just world building, I'd say, for the first like 60% of the book, and then towards the end there's like a book 2, which is like 3/4 of the way into the book. That's when it really starts to pick up with the political drama and everything going on, and it really leads up to the second book, which is The Wicked King. And then there's a third book called The Queen of Nothing. I am very interested in this. And then a tie-along to this book is The Stolen Heir, which takes place in Oak's point of view. Oak is considered the half-sibling of Jude, Taryn, and Vi. I love her writing style. I love the fairy world that she has built, and I am so excited to read The Wicked King. I've heard it recommended quite a few times on Book Talk, so I'm excited for that. I'm gonna go in with highlights. So the next book on my list that I read is Codename Phoenix by Luna Kane. So Codename Phoenix is about these two main characters called Jessa and Jack. They met when it's a 10-year gap in between the beginning of the story and where it picks up again. Basically, Jack was an undercover ops person. I don't know the right word for that. He was working to try to bring down like a syndicate, and Jessa's family ends up actually being killed, and she ends up disappearing. And Jack did start a relationship with her, unfortunately, when she was underage. So they're like, he's like 5 years older. So he was like 23 and she was like 17 or 18, something like that. Anyways, he went undercover at her school to try to get close to the guy that they were trying to get. They were trying to get close to his son to get close to him, basically. You know, they hit it off. They had feelings and whatnot for each other. And then, you know, all that stuff happened. And it's 10 years later, and he's still working on this Luxby fairy ring. And it's 10 years later, and he gets a tip about this safe house, basically, where this hacker is supposed to be that works for, the guy's name's Maxwell, the kid from high school. That's where the hacker's gonna be. So Jack gets there with his team, and who does he find? But Jessa. And what does she do? She runs. Anyway, so the story just takes place of her kind of working with Jack and his team while he's trying to not succumb to his feelings, but things happen, and basically they do work together to try to bring down Maxwell. And there's a lot of like check the trigger warnings with that. There is a talk of SA and all that, and yeah, that one was on Kindle, and I gave that one a 4. I think this is supposed to be part of a series, but this is just the first book, and I don't think she's put out anything else. I'm almost done, I promise. I'm gonna go in with my faux freckles. This is Freck, and I'm gonna use the Lime Crime one while I talk about my next book. So technically I have 2 more books to talk about. So I'll talk about this one while I do freckles, and I'll go into the last one. So I read Neon Gods by Katie Robert. This is a Hades and Persephone story. So if you're into like kind of Greek mythology, it's not so much Olympus as you know it. It's like a modern day kind of retelling. It's still kind of weird, the setup, but basically Persephone is basically promised to Hades by her mother, who became Demeter. She ends up fleeing where she lives and going across the river Styx to go into what is known as the lower city, where the myth Hades lives. She grew up believing that Hades was a myth because the last Hades was killed. And basically Hades helps her. They find a plan to bring down Zeus and basically announce that he is still alive and kicking, which apparently a lot of people actually know that he's still alive, especially, it's called a 13. Hades is part of the 13, but it's basically, you know, like Hades, Zeus, Demeter, Aphrodite, Poseidon, you know, stuff like that. If you ask me to name all the Greek mythological people, I don't know. But it's a very interesting take on, you know, Hades and Persephone. It is spicy. I will admit it's spicy, but I don't think it's as spicy as people make it out to be. I guess, like, if you're not used to spice, it is pretty spicy, but whatever. I gave that one a 4, and I am super excited to read the rest in the line that's available. I think Electric Idol is next, and I really enjoyed it, and let's move on to the eyes. I need to do something with my brows. I do not like how this looks. I'm gonna go in with my LEJ brow pencil. I'm just gonna go in with the other side. Like I said, I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm gonna go in with liner. This is just a KVD Magnet Gray. I'm just gonna tight line with this. So yeah, really like Neon Gods. If I didn't say it already, I gave it a 4. Okay, and then the last book I read was on my Kindle, and it's called Silver or Lead. It's a Mafia for Hire book by Darcy Halifax. This does end on a cliffhanger, and I don't know if the second book is out yet. If you need to know anything about me, I am a fan of the Mafia storyline. Do I think any of it's accurate? No. But this basically follows a woman. I'm really terrible at names. But follows a woman who is a doctor who ends up getting kidnapped by this mafia guy. Not because of who she is, but what she is. She's a doctor, and his little brother was shot, and he obviously can't take him to a normal hospital. So he enlists his men to basically kidnap the first doctor. And basically this is a story where, like, the man falls first. He's just enamored by her. He's intrigued by her because she, like, I don't want your money. I don't care if you kill me, you know, sort of thing. Anyway, they start a kind of tumultuous relationship based really on sex. She's very hot and cold with him, and he kind of gets sick of it. But this takes place over like a year, and they eventually start to trust each other, and they tell each other about their past. And she has a very sad past with what happened with her, which what made her who she is. But it ends on a cliffhanger where I think he is working with somebody that hurt her in the past. That's just my theory. I gave that one a 4. It wasn't horrible. I would read the second one. I'm just gonna go with glitter liner. So I know I suck at explaining books. I'm hoping I can get better. I think I'm gonna start taking notes. That's my problem. I'm not the type of person that can, like, annotate books, but maybe I'll just make a note on my phone. As I'm filming this, it is August 4th, and I have already read 4 books on my Kindle this month. I do plan on taking a break from my Kindle to read some of my physical books, which I bought even more books. Why do I do that? I do not know. But I'm going to finish up the rest of my look, and then I'll be back to wrap up this video, finally. I know, I suck. I am a terrible, terrible person when it comes to talking. Alright, this is the finished look. It's nothing spectacular. I went very simple, obviously. Didn't even put on lipstick, just my Pharmacy lip balm. But yeah, let's just wrap up this video because I feel like I talked forever and never got to a good point. I really want to get better at making these videos, and hopefully by the end of August I will have a better grasp on how to more eloquently and thoroughly talk about books. I did even start a Bookstagram. I think that's how you say it. Instagram for books, so if you want to follow me, I'll have that down in the description. But yeah, I don't know what else to say. I am very bad at talking, but I'm just gonna wrap up this video. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you have any video suggestions or book suggestions, let me know down below. I have a wide variety of books that I like, and there's no judgment here. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to follow me on my other socials. Everything will be linked down below, along with all the product details today. And yeah, I think that's it. Have an amazing day or night whenever you're watching this, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!